I handed her the notebook without looking up. My sister's perfume arrived before she did. Sweet vanilla, the expensive kind our parents bought her last month. The one I'd asked for first. She leaned against my doorframe, one hip cocked, examining her nails like she had all the time in the world. Finals started tomorrow. Leena, you done with chemistry yet? I was always done. That was the unspoken arrangement in our house. I finished first, she copied second, we both passed, and everyone stayed happy, especially our parents, who loved reminding relatives that both their daughters were excellent students. On the desk, I said, not bothering to meet her eyes. Maya sauntered in, her movements unhurried and entitled. She never said thank you anymore. The first few times, back in 9th grade, she'd at least pretended gratitude. Now it was just expected. The way rain falls. The way I existed to make her life easier. She flipped through my notes, her perfectly manicured fingers, another thing our parents paid for while telling me I didn't need it, scanning my handwriting. 3 months of lectures. Diagrams I'd redrawn 4 times to understand. Practice problems I'd worked through at 2 a.m. while she slept peacefully down the hall. Your handwriting got messier, she commented, frowning slightly. It's readable. Barely. But she was already pulling out her phone, snapping photos of each page. Click, click, click. The sound felt like something being extracted from me piece by piece. Mom wants you downstairs after. She's making that chicken thing you like. The chicken thing I like. The one Maya had claimed as her favourite 3 years ago. So now it appeared on her birthday. Her good report cards, her college acceptance celebration. I couldn't remember the last time someone made it for me specifically. I'll be down later. Don't take forever. Dad wants to talk about summer plans. She paused at the door, glancing back with that expression she'd perfected, the one that looked like affection from a distance, but felt like assessment up close. You're going to tutor again, right? That family paid well last year. The Kims, who paid me $20 an hour to teach their son calculus, while Maya spent her summers at expensive camps our parents funded. Leadership retreats, language immersion programs, things that looked good on applications. Probably. Good. I might need help with my college essays when summer starts. You're better at writing than me. She left with my notebook photos and my summer plans, leaving behind only her perfume and the familiar weight in my chest. The one that felt like drowning in slow motion. I turned back to my desk. English literature still needed reviewing. I had history notes to reorganize. Physics problems to check twice, because I always checked twice. Once for understanding, once for the mistakes I'd find when Maya used them. Downstairs, I heard her laughing with our mother. That easy, bright sound she made when she wanted something or had just gotten it. I heard my name mentioned, then more laughter. Probably about my messy handwriting, probably about how serious I was, how I needed to relax more, be more like Maya, who balanced everything so beautifully. I picked up my pen again. The English essay wasn't going to write itself. The pattern had started so innocently. Middle school, 7th grade, when Maya struggled with her first algebra test. I'd helped her study, explained the concepts, and she'd passed. Our parents praised us both, me for being such a good sister, her for improving her grade. It felt good, being needed, being the smart one who could fix things. By 8th grade, she wasn't just asking for help. She was asking for my homework to check her answers, just to make sure she was on the right track, she'd said. I'd believed her. 9th grade brought the notes. Could she borrow mine to fill in what she'd missed? She'd been sick that week, tired from practice, distracted by friend drama. There was always a reason, and I always said yes. 10th grade. The requests weren't requests anymore. They were assumptions. My notes appeared on her desk without asking. My homework got photographed during dinner. My study guides became her study guides. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being a sister and became a resource. Now, senior year, I couldn't remember the last time Maya had made her own notes from scratch. Couldn't remember the last time she'd struggled with material, before asking me to explain it. She'd learned to outsource her education to me, and I'd learned that my value in this family was proportional to my usefulness. I glanced at my chemistry textbook, at the highlighted passages and margin notes covering every available space. Hundreds of hours of work, all of it photographed and filed away on Maya's phone, ready to be reviewed the night before the exam, while she painted her nails and texted her friends. The resentment sat in my throat like a stone. I swallowed it down the way I always did, and kept studying. Finals week blurred together the way it always did. Wake up, test, lunch, test, home, study, sleep. Maya breezed through her exams with the confidence of someone who'd spent the night before at a friend's house instead of reviewing material. She'd glanced at my notes after all. She had my diagrams, my mnemonics, my careful organisation of information. What else did she need? I watched her the morning of our chemistry final. She sat 3 rows ahead, her hair in a perfect ponytail, wearing the new outfit she'd bought for college visits. She caught me looking once and smiled, warm and sisterly, before turning back to her phone. I thought about probability distributions, about chemical equilibrium, about how everything in the universe supposedly moved toward balance, toward fairness, even though nothing in my life ever had. The exam appeared on my desk at exactly 9 o'clock. I picked up my pencil and began. The questions were familiar. I'd anticipated most of them, had practiced similar problems dozens of times. My hand moved across the page with mechanical efficiency, filling in answers I'd earned through sleepless nights and sacrificed weekends. Halfway through, I felt it. A tightness in my chest that had nothing to do with test anxiety. My hand cramped around the pencil. The fluorescent light seemed too bright, suddenly, washing everything in white. I blinked, trying to focus on the question about reaction kinetics, but the words blurred. Around me, pencils scratched against paper. Someone coughed. The clock ticked forward with mechanical indifference. My chest tightened further. I pressed my palm against it, trying to breathe normally, trying not to draw attention. The white light grew brighter. The room felt very far away. I thought absurdly about the chicken dish, about whether anyone would make it for my funeral, or if that would be reserved for Maya too, about whether she'd cry at my funeral or just worry about who would help her pass her college classes. The pencil slipped from my fingers. I heard it hit the floor, a small sound in the vast silence of the exam room. I tried to bend down to retrieve it, but my body wouldn't respond. Everything was white now, white and quiet and strangely peaceful. The teacher's voice came from very far away. "Leena? Leena, are you all right?" I wanted to answer, wanted to say I just needed a moment, just needed to breathe, but my lungs wouldn't cooperate and my vision was narrowing to a pinpoint, and somewhere in the back of my mind I understood that this was it. This was how it ended. Collapsed over a chemistry exam, my last act of service to a sister who'd never once asked if I was tired of carrying her. I stopped fighting it. The pain faded first, then the sound, then the terrible, endless weight of being useful to people who never saw me at all. I let go. There was no dramatic transition, no tunnel of light or parade of memories, just darkness and then nothing, and then the absolute certainty that I didn't have to carry anything anymore. The nothingness felt like mercy. Time passed, or didn't. In death, I discovered there was no difference. And then, impossibly, there was light again. Not the harsh white of fluorescent tubes, but the soft yellow of my bedroom lamp. Not the antiseptic smell of the exam room, but the familiar scent of my lavender detergent and old books. I woke up to Maya's perfume. For a moment, I didn't understand. Death wasn't supposed to smell like vanilla and entitlement. But there it was, preceding her into my room exactly the way it always had. And there she was in my doorway with that same hip cocked, those same manicured nails catching the light. Leena, you done with chemistry yet? I sat up slowly. My desk was covered with notebooks. The same notebooks I'd finished 3 months ago. The same chemistry notes I'd handed over the night before I died. But that had already happened. I'd already given them to her. I'd already taken the exam. My phone sat on my nightstand, screen dark. I picked it up with shaking hands. 3 months earlier. The date stared back at me, impossible and absolute. 3 months before finals. Before the white light and the fading and the nothing. My heart pounded. This was real. The weight of my blanket, the creak of my desk chair, the impatient tapping of Maya's foot against my doorframe. All of it solid and present and undeniably real. I'd died, and somehow, impossibly, I'd been given another chance. Hello, Earth to Leena. Maya waved her hand, annoyed now. The notes? I have practice in an hour and I need to photograph them before I leave. I looked at her. Really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years. At the entitlement in her posture. The expectation in her eyes. The complete absence of doubt that I would give her what she wanted, because I always did. In my first life, I'd handed them over without hesitation. I'd enabled her laziness and called it sisterhood. I'd destroyed myself to build her up, and in the end, I died with nothing to show for it but her unearned success. Not this time. I'm not done yet, I heard myself say. Her perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. What? But you're always done by now. Not this time, she laughed, uncertain. Very funny. Come on, I actually need them. Coach will kill me if I'm late again, and I can't study after practice because I said, I'm not done. The laughter died. She stared at me like I'd suddenly started speaking another language. In a way, I had. I was speaking the language of refusal, of boundaries, of a world where I mattered too. We'd never been fluent in that before. Are you feeling okay? I'm fine. I just need my own notes for a while longer. But you always... She stopped, recalculating. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted into something softer, more coaxing. The voice she used on our parents when she wanted something expensive. Leena, come on. Don't be like this. I really need them. You know how hard chemistry is for me. It wasn't hard for her. She'd never actually tried. She'd just learned that I would always be there, would always bridge the gap between her and effort. You should start your own notes earlier, I said quietly. 3 months is plenty of time. Her expression cycled through confusion, annoyance, and finally something that might have been genuine surprise. She wasn't used to me having opinions about how she studied. She wasn't used to me having opinions about anything that affected her. What is your problem today? No problem. I just need to focus on my own work. She stood there for another moment, waiting for me to crack, to apologise, to laugh it off and hand over the notebook like I always did. When I simply turned back to my desk and picked up my pen, she made a sound of frustration and left, her footstep heavy on the stairs. I heard her talking to our mother in the kitchen, heard my name spoken in that bewildered, victimised tone, heard Mum's response to like, something soothing and indulgent. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs again, heavier this time. Leena. My mother appeared in the doorway, wearing her concerned face, the one that was really about inconvenience masquerading as care. Maya says you won't share your chemistry notes. I'm still using them. But you always share with your sister. You know she has a harder time with science than you do. She didn't have a harder time. She had an easier sister. There was a difference. I need to focus on my own studying this time, Mum. This isn't like you, honey. Are you feeling all right? Did something happen at school? Yes, I wanted to say. I died. I failed my exam because I spent my life making sure she could pass hers. And then I died with a pencil in my hand and her perfume in my lungs and absolutely nothing to show for any of it. I'm fine. I just think Maya should make her own notes this semester. My mother's concerned face shifted into something else. Disappointment, maybe. Or just annoyance that her system was breaking down. Your sister looks up to you, Leena. You're the older one. You're supposed to help her. I can help her understand the material. I just can't give her my notes to copy anymore. It's the same thing. It wasn't. It had never been. But explaining that to someone who'd spent years benefiting from my invisible labour felt impossible. I need to study now, Mum. She left with a sigh, the kind that said I was being difficult and she'd deal with me later. I heard her downstairs talking to Maya in low, sympathetic tones. Poor Maya. Mean older sister. So unlike Leena. Must be stress. I turned back to my chemistry notes, the ones I died making perfect enough for someone else. I picked up my pen and started over from the beginning, writing just for myself this time. My handwriting stayed messy. I didn't care. The next 3 months felt like living in a parallel universe. Same house, same school, same family. But I was different, and the difference created ripples everywhere. Maya tried 6 more times to get my notes. She asked nicely. She asked desperately. She got Mum involved twice, Dad once. She even tried bribing me with her old clothes, like I'd ever wanted her hand-me-downs when she got everything new. Each time I said no, quietly, firmly, without explanation or apology. The first week, she barely studied at all. She was waiting for me to crack, I realised, waiting for the guilt to overwhelm me, for our parents' disappointment to wear me down, for everything to return to normal. But I died once already. Normal had killed me. I wasn't going back. The second week, I heard her crying in her room after receiving her first quiz grade. A D in chemistry, the lowest grade she'd gotten since middle school, back before she'd learned she could use me as a crutch. Part of me felt guilty. The rest of me remembered the white light, the fading, the absolute certainty that I'd never mattered, except as a resource to be drained. I kept studying, just for me this time. By the third week, Maya started making her own notes. They were terrible at first, disorganised, incomplete, full of gaps. She asked me questions about the material, and I answered them. I explained concepts, drew diagrams when she was genuinely confused. But I never, ever handed her my notebook. "You've changed," she said one night, lingering in my doorway. It was 3 weeks before finals. Her notes were spread across her bed, covered in frustrated erasures and question marks. Maybe. You used to be nicer. I used to be useful. There's a difference. She flinched, like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. I never asked you to... But she had. Not in words, maybe, but in every expectation, every assumption, every entitled lean against my doorframe. "Good luck with your studying," I said, not unkindly, just firmly. She left without her usual flounce. I heard her crying softly in her room later that night. I heard Mum go in, heard the murmur of comfort, heard Maya's tearful explanation about how hard chemistry was, how different things were now, how she didn't understand what had gotten into me. I pulled my headphones on and kept working through physics problems. My parents grew colder as finals approached. Not obviously. They still fed me, still drove me places. But there was a distance now, a subtle disapproval in every interaction. I'd broken the family equilibrium. I'd made Maya struggle. I'd chosen myself over the collective good. At dinner one night, Dad brought up my summer plans. The Kim family called about tutoring again. I told them you'd be happy to do it. Actually, I was thinking of taking a programming course this summer. Silence. Maya's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Mum set down her water glass with deliberate care. "A programming course?" Mum repeated, like I'd said I wanted to join the circus. "Yeah, there's one at the community college. It fits with what I want to study in university. But the tutoring money, I'll use my savings for the course." More silence. Maya was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, something between resentment and reluctant curiosity. Dad cleared his throat. We already told the Kims you'd be available. Then you'll have to untell them. I'm taking the course. I'd never contradicted them this directly before, never stated my own plans like they mattered more than their arrangements. The air in the dining room grew thick with unspoken conflict. Leena, this is very selfish of you, Mum said finally. The Kims are counting on you, and Maya wanted help with her college essays. Maya can go to the writing centre at the library. They have free workshops all summer. It's not the same as having her sister help her. No, I agreed. It's better. She'll learn to advocate for herself. Maya's face flushed red. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't need this. I don't need any of this. She left the table, footsteps pounding up the stairs. A door slammed. Dad looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Disappointment, yes, but also something like confusion, as if he couldn't quite reconcile this version of me with the daughter who had always been so accommodating. You're being very difficult lately, Leena. Your mother and I are concerned. I'm just setting boundaries. Boundaries, he repeated, like the word tasted wrong. Your sister needs you. Family helps each other. I'm helping her. I'm teaching her to stand on her own. By abandoning her right before finals? I met his eyes steadily. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just not sacrificing myself anymore. He opened his mouth, closed it. Looked at Mum, who shook her head slightly. They'd lost this argument and they knew it, but they couldn't quite admit it yet. I excused myself before the conversation could spiral further. Behind me, I heard them talking in low voices, trying to understand what had gotten into me, trying to figure out how to fix their obedient, useful daughter who'd suddenly developed a spine. In my room, I opened my laptop and researched the programming course. Read reviews, checked the curriculum, imagined a summer where my time belonged to me, where I learned things I wanted to know instead of teaching things other people needed. It felt like breathing after being underwater for years. The weeks crawled by. Maya stopped speaking to me except in terse, necessary exchanges. Our parents maintained their cold disappointment, punctuated by occasional attempts to guilt me into returning to my old role. But I died once. I knew what waited at the end of that road. I watched Maya struggle. Watched her stay up late for the first time in years, actually working through problems instead of just memorizing my solutions. Watched her join study groups, ask teachers for help, develop her own systems for organizing information. She was learning. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely. And I was learning too. Learning that I could exist in my family without erasing myself. Learning that their disappointment wouldn't kill me. Learning that being needed and being valued were not the same thing. 2 weeks before finals, Maya knocked on my door. Actually knocked instead of just barging in. Come in. She entered hesitantly, holding her chemistry notebook. It was thick now, filled with her own handwriting, her own diagrams, her own struggles made visible on paper. Can you check something for me? She asked quietly. I'm not asking for your notes. I just want to make sure I understand this concept correctly. I looked at her, at the genuine uncertainty in her face, at the notebook she'd actually filled herself. Sure, show me. She sat at the edge of my bed and walked me through her understanding of equilibrium reactions. She'd gotten most of it right. I corrected a small misunderstanding, drew a quick diagram to clarify. That makes sense, she said slowly. Thanks. You're welcome. She didn't leave immediately, just sat there, running her thumb along the edge of her notebook. I'm scared, she admitted finally. About finals, I've never actually done this on my own before. I know. Do you think I'll fail? I thought about my first life, about how she'd passed easily with my notes, learned nothing, and gone on to college completely unprepared for classes where she couldn't use me as a crutch. I think you'll do better than you expect, I said honestly. You've actually learned the material this time. That counts for more than you realize. She looked at me with something like gratitude. I'm sorry for taking advantage, for assuming you'd always just be there to fix everything. I know. Are we going to be okay? Us, I mean. I considered this. In my first life, we'd never been okay. We'd just been functional, our relationship built on exploitation. I'd been too tired to resist. We will be, I said, but it's going to be different. She nodded slowly. Different might be good. After she left, I returned to my own studying. But something had shifted. The weight I'd been carrying felt lighter. Not gone. It would probably never be completely gone, but manageable. I could breathe around it now. Finals arrived like a reckoning. I walked into the chemistry exam with 3 months of careful, solitary study behind me. Notes I'd made for myself. Understanding I'd built with my own effort. No one else's success depending on whether I'd organised information clearly enough for them to absorb without trying. Maya sat 3 rows ahead again, same ponytail, same new outfit. But this time, when she glanced back at me, there was no warm smile masking entitlement. Just a small nod, acknowledgement, maybe even solidarity. The exam landed on my desk at 9 o'clock. I picked up my pencil with steady hands. The questions unfolded like a conversation with myself. I knew this material. Not because I'd memorized it for someone else's benefit, but because I'd learned it for my own understanding. Every answer came easily, flowing from actual comprehension instead of rote repetition. No chest pain, no white light, no fading. Just me and the exam, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd earned this. I finished with 20 minutes to spare, used them to check my work once, carefully, then sat back and watched the clock tick toward the end. When time was called, I handed in my exam and walked out into the hallway. Free, light, mine. Maya was waiting outside, leaning against the wall. She looked exhausted, but not defeated. How'd it go? I asked. I don't know. Hard, but I knew more than I thought I would. She managed a tired smile. I actually understood what they were asking. That's good. Yeah, she pushed off the wall. Want to grab lunch? Just us? It was the first time she'd asked me to do something with her in years. Not asked me to do something for her. Asked me to be with her. Sure. We walked to the small cafe near school, ordered sandwiches, sat by the window. For a while, we didn't talk about exams or notes or the 3 months that had changed everything. We just talked about the weather, about summer plans, about small meaningless things that somehow felt significant. I'm taking that writing workshop, Maya said eventually, the one at the library, for my college essays. That's good. Yeah. She picked at her sandwich. I'm nervous, but I think I need to learn how to do this stuff myself. You do. I'm going to State University in the fall. Did I tell you? You mentioned it. Are you still looking at the tech schools out east? In my first life, I'd never applied. I'd stayed local, stayed accessible, stayed useful. The programming course I'd wanted had been deferred, then forgotten. I died without ever admitting I had dreams of my own. Yeah, I said. I'm applying to 3 of them. That's really far. I know. She looked at me with something complicated in her expression. Regret, maybe, or just understanding that our lives were diverging had maybe always been meant to diverge. I'll miss you, she said quietly. I'll miss you too. And I meant it. Not the version of us where I'd erased myself to prop her up, but this new version, where we were learning to be separate people who could still care about each other. We'll visit though, right? During breaks? Of course, she smiled, more genuine this time. Good. The results came back 2 weeks later. I scored in the top 5%. My chemistry teacher sent an email congratulating me on my exceptional understanding of the material. My parents read it at dinner with expressions of pleased surprise, like they'd forgotten I was capable of anything beyond being useful to Maya. "That's wonderful, honey," Mom said, in the tone she usually reserved for Maya's achievements. "Thanks. Your sister did well too. She passed?" "Passed. Not excelled. Not top 5%. Just passed." I looked across the table at Maya. She was pushing food around her plate, not meeting anyone's eyes. Her chemistry grade had been a C+, passing, yes, but barely, and nothing like the easy Bs she'd coasted to when she had my notes to guide her. But there was something else in her expression. Not shame, exactly. Something closer to pride. She'd done it herself. It wasn't impressive by external standards, but internally, for her, it was a mountain climbed. "That's good," I said, and meant it. She looked up, surprised. "Really?" "Really. You earned it." Understanding passed between us. Dad cleared his throat, uncomfortable with emotional honesty. Mom changed the subject to summer plans, but Maya smiled at me, small and private, and I smiled back. The karmic scale was balancing, slowly and naturally. Summer arrived with its own rhythms. I started my programming course and fell in love with it immediately. The logic, the problem solving, the way code did exactly what you told it to. No hidden expectations, no unspoken demands. Maya attended her writing workshops and came home with pages covered in red pen, frustrated but determined. She'd call me sometimes, ask my opinion on an essay, but she never asked me to write it for her. Our parents adjusted, slowly. They still made comments about how I'd changed, but the disappointment had faded into something closer to bemused acceptance, maybe even quiet respect. One evening, Dad found me on the porch working through a coding assignment on my laptop. "You really like this stuff," he said, sitting beside me. "I do. I didn't know. I didn't know you were interested in it." I didn't talk about it much. Why not? I could have said many things. That I'd been too busy being useful. That I'd learned my interests only mattered if they served someone else. That I'd been slowly disappearing and no one had noticed. "I didn't think anyone would care," I said instead. He was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry. We should have asked." It wasn't a full apology, wasn't an acknowledgement of everything I'd sacrificed, everything they'd taken without noticing. But it was something. "It's okay. Things are different now." "They are." He stood, paused. "I'm proud of you, Leena. You're going to do well out east." After he left, I sat on the porch watching the sun set, my laptop warm on my knees, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The acceptance letters came in the spring. 3 yeses from 3 schools. I chose the one furthest away, the one with the best computer science program, the one that felt like freedom. Maya got into State University with her own essay, her own grades, her own effort. We celebrated together, separate victories, genuine joy. The night before I left for college, she came to my room one last time. No perfume announcement, no entitled lean, just a quiet knock and her standing in the doorway looking smaller than usual. "I wanted to say thank you," she said. "For what?" "For stopping, for making me learn to stand on my own." She smiled ruefully. "I hated it at the time, but I get it now. You saved me by refusing to save me." I stood and hugged her, really hugged her, the way sisters should. "You saved yourself. I just stopped getting in the way." "Still, thank you." After she left, I looked around my room. At the desk where I'd killed myself with work that was never mine. At the notebooks stacked on shelves, some filled with my old handwriting and some with my new. At the acceptance letter pinned to my bulletin board. In my first life, I died in this room. Not physically, that had come later in the exam room with white light and fading. But emotionally, every note I'd handed over, every boundary I'd failed to set, every piece of myself I'd sacrificed. They'd all been small deaths leading to the final one. This time, I was leaving this room alive. I opened my laptop one last time and started a new document. Titled it, Things I Want. Started listing them, not things I should want or things that would make me useful, just things that were mine. The list grew longer than I'd expected. Apparently, I'd been accumulating dreams even while pretending I didn't have them. Outside my window, the night was soft and full of crickets. Tomorrow, I'd pack my car. The day after, I'd drive east into a future I'd chosen. Somewhere along the way, I'd become someone who could choose. I closed my laptop and stood at the window, watching the familiar street I'd grown up on. In the reflection, I saw myself clearly, no longer the girl who'd handed over pieces of herself to buy temporary peace. Someone better. Someone who'd learned that the truest form of love wasn't sacrifice. It was this, the quiet courage of choosing yourself, even when everyone expects you to choose them instead. The house settled into evening sounds around me. Normal life continuing. Maya's music from down the hall, Mum and Dad talking in the kitchen. The hum of the refrigerator, all of it familiar and soon to be distant. But I wasn't drowning anymore. I was breathing, steady and strong and mine. And tomorrow, I would leave. Not running away, but moving toward the life I died to understand I deserved. Toward the person I'd always been underneath the useful daughter, the convenient sister, the invisible support system. Just Leena. Whole and free and finally enough. I pressed my palm against the cool glass of the window and smiled. In my first life, I'd collapsed in an exam room. My last thought, a bitter question about who would help Maya pass her classes without me. In this life, I knew the answer. She would help herself. And that was exactly as it should be. The karmic circle had closed. Not through revenge or confrontation, but through the simple act of reclaiming my own existence. Maya had learned to stand. I had learned to let go. Our parents had learned to see us both as separate people instead of a single unit of convenience. Justice, I'd discovered, wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes it was just this. Everyone finally becoming who they were supposed to be. I turned from the window and began to pack. Tomorrow would come, and the day after that, and the day after that. And for the first time in both my lives, I would meet them as myself. Not as someone's useful sister, not as someone's invisible support system, just Leena. Breathing and whole and finally, beautifully free. The notebook that had killed me in my first life sat on the shelf, untouched since finals. I picked it up one last time, felt its weight, remembered the girl who'd filled these pages while slowly disappearing. Then I placed it in a box labelled Donate and closed the lid. I didn't need it anymore. I had my own notes now, my own life, my own future. And that, I thought, was worth everything. Worth the 3 months of coldness and guilt. Worth Maya's tears and my parents' disappointment. Worth the fear and the uncertainty and the horrible, necessary act of choosing myself. All of it had led here, to this moment, this room, this version of myself who knew her own worth. I was ready. For college, for distance, for the 1,000 small choices that would make up the rest of my life. And this time, every single one of them would be mine.